Um, Adaptivity. We haven't talked a lot about adaptivity, but we kind of hinted at it. You want to be adaptive. Um, to me, that means a few different things. It means always have a fresh resume on hand, not literally updated to the moment, but do you know how many people come to me and said, Mike, I have not improved my resume in 10 years. And you know what? We have to completely redo the resume, and that takes time. And the person with a typical situation, somebody comes to me and says, Mike, I saw a job on a job board. I really want to apply, and it's due a week from now. I haven't redone my resume in 10 years. Can you help me? You know what? I'm not going to help that client because they haven't done their resume in 10 years. It's going to need iteration. And guess what? The job they're applying for may not even be real to begin with because it's on a job board. I mentioned I don't like job boards. So that client should have had a resume that maybe was 1 or 2 years old at the latest. I can take a 1 or 2 year resume in 3 days and bring it up to a B or B plus. I'd like more time. I could bring it up to a B or B plus, and that client would have been able to apply for that job. So many of you may have very old resumes around. You may not have the most current technologies on there, but I really would encourage you to be as quick as possible and be adaptive in the marketplace. The way that many of you are going to get a job is somebody's going to give you a call and say, hey, I just heard of a job opening at ABC company. Would you like to come interview? Well, that's great, but if you have an old resume, you don't want to say, I can't come in Monday because my resume is not updated. You might as well just give up at that point. So having an updated resume, having as many conversations as possible, being as smart as possible what's happening in your company, being as smart as possible what's happening in your industry, and then being able to take advantage of that is really, really important. I'm not suggesting people can't stay at one company for their entire life. You could probably stay at Google and move around, or at Amazon, and have a fantastic career from now until the day that you pass from this planet. But you still want to be agile and flexible enough to be able to change departments. You want to have the resume on hand. You want to know people in different departments so you can basically move around quicker than somebody else. So maybe we'll talk a little about incremental changes. So everything is on the increment that we're talking about here. So how about a review every 3 months? When I was in investment banking, you know what my review was? It was my boss sitting down with me saying, this is your bonus. That was it. He may have said something afterward in terms of how I performed, but you know what? I completely ignored him because all I cared about was the money. Now, nobody on this call, I would assume, I'll make the assumption not many people on this call are having reviews every 3 months. My suggestion is ask your boss for 3-month reviews. They don't have to be formal reviews like an annual review. Many of us have annual reviews in the United States, but you have to take charge of your career. So if you think about things in steps, and if you think about doing things incrementally, I would ask your boss for a review every single 3 months. That way you can tell what you're being told formally. You can get the intonation of your boss's voice. You can tell what the body language is, maybe a little bit more when we're not in COVID. But if you sit down every 3 months with your boss and have a discussion, you won't be surprised if you get a promotion. You won't be surprised if you get fired. You won't be surprised if somebody else gets promoted ahead of you. So we'll assume the boss will actually give you good feedback, but you have to take the responsibility to ask for that. The boss doesn't want to do that. That's extra work. But if you can communicate to your boss that you don't want a formal feedback more than once a year, but you really like to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour once every 3 months and talk about how am I doing? How is my work production? All the basic questions you want to ask in terms of your skills. Do I have any gaps that you see? If you're not taking charge of your career, then nobody else is going to. So the idea that you ask for feedback is just so incredibly important. So, whether this is looking for a job, whether this is managing your career, everything is in stages. And you always want to make these adjustments. I'm not saying hop from firm to firm to firm, but I am saying think about where you are. Always think about where you are in terms of this process, and always want to be in a position where you can take advantage of an opportunity, either internally or externally. I think the main point is you basically want to go from the point where you're an agile puppy, and you get to the point where you're a lion. You want to get to the point where you're roaring. You want to get to a point where you're in charge of your career. And again, if the one piece of advice I can give more than anything else to people who are technically oriented is show business results, get to know non-technical people, and understand that technology is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Many people say that, but they don't really realize what that means.